Hails, Borthers. We are here.
Hails.
uh, yeah, so, hey everybody. Welcome back to another Terminus Livestream where we take a break, but we call it something else. That was kind of the conspiracy initially, right? Was this is our opportunity to like take periodic breaks, but
Yeah,
pretend
which
we're
is
making real content.
definitely what we're doing. I strictly disavow hacks processes content. We do not condone such activity on
Is that
by our
like
listeners.
I assume that's like a crunkcore band or something.
Oh, I thought those were two different. I thought there was kind of a paratactic thing. Like he turned off unicorns and he killed his girlfriend.
No, I think
And
it's
you should never turn off unicorns.
I think that's probably some sort of awful crunkcore band or something. I
Oh
don't know.
God, yeah, that sounds like a scene kid thing, right?
Yeah, as
Yeah.
usual, guys. If there's any issues with audio between us, just let us know. Throw it in the chat, and I'll try to balance it out. It looks like it's decent, just based off like my monitoring right now, but it could always be fucked up. So, I don't know how you been, buddy. Are you excited for October? You excited for us to meet for the second time?
Yeah, man. Yeah, more like Cocktober. No, I'm excited. I am I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be surreal. Actually, I don't think it'll be surreal to see you at all. It'll be like cool. I mean, I think the surreal thing was when we met IRL for the first time like 12 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's
That
always
was
weird meeting internet people in person.
Mhm,
I always
mhm.
say that like the weird thing about it is trying to getting used to them taking up physical space and like the way they move, the real physicality of a person you primarily know online. That's what's weird.
I think that's true. I think uh Yeah, I think that when I met you, I was quite struck by your gait. You had a kind of
My gait.
you had a hair all the way down your back, and I think you were probably drunk as shit, but you had this bounding gait to you, and sort of a every one of your physical motions was more violent than necessary. It was, like extremely strong handshake, sort of like doing like moonwalking down the street basically. It was it was there was a sort of super abundant vitality to it that was cool.
I
um
probably was extremely drunk, but also I don't know. I have been told that I have very weird physical mannerisms. So I mean
yeah,
that could
yeah.
definitely be a part of it.
It was more just like, it wasn't so much weird as just extreme ebullience. You were ready to go. uh the Yeah, I've met a few other internet people IRL, and it is yeah, the first time you meet someone, you're like, oh, I didn't realize you were proportioned like that. Like, um or there's like a lot you don't realize about how someone looks or scans socially or something. um, I don't know. But yeah, it'll be cool. We will. I mean, we're trying to think of cool stuff to do during the fest, to try to get some interviews down with some of these bands. We've heard some exciting things that cannot be revealed about the last few names that are going to be announced. So it's going to be, the lineup is already insane, but it may get insaner.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'm looking forward
uh,
to those last announcements, but yeah, I know that
um,
we're gonna meet at least a couple people, a couple friends of the pod up there. So
oh, nice, nice.
that should be a good
Well, I
time.
would, I would, I would hope so. Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, like some of the people on the Discord are going to be there, and
Hmm,
so
hmm.
that should be good. And I'll get to show Maddie from Corpsest my worm phlegm tattoo IRL, so that'll be tight.
Nice.
That's
Um,
definitely a goal of mine.
Yeah, you're gonna show him your worm phlegm tattoo.
Yeah, yeah, I am.
uh,
Totally. When I get up to Chicago, I'm gonna start a Grinder account just so I can see if I can show him a little earlier. But
yeah, for sure. It's yeah, yeah.
Wilkins, what are you
Um,
shouting about? Don't shout with that timing. Fuck.
oh, we got someone in the chat saying they'll be at Metal Threat. Cool. We like Iron Maiden too.
Oh, awesome.
Um, yeah, Iron Maiden unfortunately will be not at Metal Threat, but they'll be there in spirit because Destroyer 666 is playing.
Mm,
It's, it's,
yeah.
which will be interesting to see live.
Yeah, I'll reserve my judgment. I've never been a Destroyer 666 fan, but I've heard they're very good live. So we'll see.
No,
We'll see how it goes down.
neither have I. We've talked about this. That was a thing that we agreed on back in the day that they were very overrated. I've tried it many times. Certain ones of their songs are just so awesome that like it makes you think, okay, maybe there's something more there, right? Like Satan's Hammer is undeniably awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but and so I've given it a few tries. I've listened again, and I think I get it. First of all, it's like you know what it is? You always expect it to be sort of like they say it's satanic speed metal, so you expect it to be like nimble and ripping and hyper melodic,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like I don't know. You almost expect it to sound like Ares Kingdom, but faster and with solos and like
Yeah.
drunker, which would be sick. And there are bands that sort of sound like that, but instead it's this kind of like lumbering mid-tempo stuff, and at least their older stuff, at least the first record, and there's a nonsense quality to the riffs that I find really off-putting if I'm expecting a certain kind of riffing, but it's actually death metal riffing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like he's doing these speed metal heavy metal riffs but with a death metal guy's ear for just totally atonal intervals. And I listened to it again the first record the other day again, and then I got a second layer of understanding, which was, oh, this is like really clumsy pagan black metal too. It is the death metal thing, but it also sounds a lot like Carpathian Wolves Graveland, but even clunkier.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that I think that probably what Destroyer 666, what you imagine it to be, is probably more like what people imitating them sound like, which is a sort of streamlined Black Death thrash thing that hits all the notes that you would expect, when
right.
the original is like this much weirder, clumsier, more singular thing.
Yes, it's actually sort of the first. I would never believe I'd say this, but it's their old stuff is actually sort of cryptic and hermetic and weird. Even though it's also about partying with your bros in the
Yeah.
outback. The newer stuff, I'm gonna have to go back and listen now to like Phoenix Rising and shit like that because I remember being underwhelmed by that back in the day too. You know,
Yeah,
it's,
and I haven't really heard any of the like the new shit. So, Pagan of the North, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say. We don't know anything about anything. We just sort of pretend to. But I'm glad that you enjoy our pretending.
yeah. Yeah, if you can learn something from the ways we pretend to know things and pretend to know things in your own way, that's great.
Well, most of music, even at like higher levels of theory, is sort of pretending to know things, and sort of like when you get into like music theory, like the further you go into it, the more philosophical and less like rigorous it becomes. It's very strange. It's kind of like
Yeah. Well,
it's a discipline that's closer to something like semiotics than like more properly formed artistic structures.
well, and we definitely don't know shit about music theory proper. Like we talk about it as much as we can because there's ways you can learn about the music, but like if there's anything that's been awesome this year, it's been getting multiple autists correct us and say that the by Dorian scale we made Aeolian scale. And that is entirely my fault, and we've been doing it since the beginning of the fucking show.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's they're probably right, but my response to that is also that like the thing about music theory and the thing about like talking about music is that mostly what music theory does is like establishes like an agreed upon set of terminology for phenomena. So really, as long as you get what's being said, if you're able to mark it out in your head into like a specific thing, it's kind of okay if you're misusing the words. So
we explained what we meant.
Yeah.
We're doing it in not in an expert way, but in a sort of not in a composer or music theorist way, but in the way we both talk about music is like we've read a lot of music reviews, we've maybe read a little more theoretical stuff about music, and we like fuck around on guitar trying to figure out why the fret up there does that one sound. And that's I think how a lot of metal listeners relate to music theory. So in a way, like we're sort of trying to bridge between the more technical stuff, which some people really do know about, and the more sort of workman-like look. Why does the fifth note sound so cool? Way that most of us learn to play music.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much all the theory that I've ever learned has just been to try to better understand sort of what I'm already doing on guitar.
Yeah.
You know, I usually, it's like I do the exploration first, and then I sort of retroactively figure out how to talk about it to other people. And honestly, the biggest asset, like if you're a musician, the biggest thing that music theory gives you, more than anything, more than like anything that enhances your own creativity, is it gives you a common language to speak to other musicians, which makes certain things a lot easier. And I think that that's like its biggest value. So, let's see. No, that wasn't Apples. That was Wilkins. He's the one who's loud. Apples is a very quiet and demure lady, because she's my best cat. And Sleepy, I am very excited for Demon Sea Live. Also, maybe I'll get a Demon Sea tattoo before I go. Maybe I'll just get a bunch of tattoos for all the bands I'm going to see there and just flash everybody. I've got an appointment in like a month for some more work, so maybe I'll throw a Demon Sea tattoo in there.
Nice. Which cover would it be?
Oh, I don't know. That's I'd have to think about it, because Demon Sea doesn't have shit that like translates very well into tattoos. So I've got stuff from a few bands like that. So I'll usually go some digging. I'll do some digging, and I'll find like an art asset from like a layout of a CD or something that works well. Like for Bolt Thrower, I've got the eye from the Chaos Eye from the back of the Fourth Crusade, and like a lot of Bolt Thrower fans have like variations of that symbol. So, but they're another band where it's like their cover art doesn't translate great as a tattoo, or like Mortician was kind of tricky. So I took the head on a pike from House by the Cemetery, and I got that for Mortician. So you just gotta have to feel it out. You know, there's a lot of cases where, for instance, Ride for Revenge. My Ride for Revenge tat is the cover of King of Snakes, which is
that's a great one.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, it's nowhere near my favorite Ride for Revenge album, but it definitely works the best as a tattoo, without question.
Yeah, you got to think about shit like that. You don't want to get something just because. You always have to think about, like, that's an art question in general that one of my buddies got me to pay more attention to, is just like, okay, you have a reason for doing something. Okay, maybe you want the cover of a certain record because that's your favorite record, but does it actually look good? Or like, you know, okay, you have a cool concept for a band name or a song name, but what if it accidentally sounds like something really stupid, and everyone's gonna know that, right?
Yeah.
You have to account for these. You have to account for these things. I mean, something I found endlessly frustrating is if I got, you know, one of my no-brainer tattoos would be a Stooges tattoo, and the Stooges predate the era of graphic design, right? The Stooges sort of like predate the era of cool band logos, which was basically, I mean, Led Zeppelin did it, but it was basically invented, I hate to say it, but credit where credit is due, basically invented by Crass. Like, band logos got really cool right around that time. I mean, you can say some of the early punk, I guess, you know, there was like the the sort of Malcolm McLaren Sex Pistols-y type stuff too. But that's about when you started to get cool logos
Well,
and
yeah,
shit.
just the idea of a logo being a sort of branding thing that is
Hmm.
like standardized across a band's work
Hmm.
was pretty novel.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. Um, yeah, I've got two. I don't have a Ride for Revenge tattoo, but I do have two Ride for Revenge shirts, which I think is
That's as
I think
good. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty good. And I have the snake. I have the crowned snake on the back of one, and he's glow in the dark.
Yeah,
Um,
I've got a short sleeve for Wisdom of the Few. So
mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
I do need to get a. I don't know what I'm gonna get on this next one. I'm thinking maybe I'll pull the trigger and get my coffins tattoo. Although I'm not really sure of the placement for that. I'm uh, I'm sort of filling out my left leg right now, and I've got like a lot of the major parts of that done. So I'll just have to I'll figure something. I usually figure out my tattoos a couple weeks before my appointment.
I heard there's a new Coffins record out.
Yeah, there is. I figure we'll cover it.
Yeah, we should. We should.
I mean that'll be a review that's just like like when I brought Jungle Rod on, where it's like it's not
Yeah.
really about the album; it's just a referendum on
No.
the
Just
band, and
yeah. This is our referendum on Coffins. Terminus thinks Coffins is cool. Right.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
listening to a bunch of Coffins in anticipation of that, just so I can like sort of fine tune
Hmm.
my
Oh,
thoughts on the new one.
I should do that too. Let's see. There's some funny shit in the chat that I was going to. Oh yeah, what I wanted to say was that we are now at 21 people concurrent viewers, which I think is a record for a
Ooh,
Terminus stream.
neat.
So thanks guys, thanks for chilling.
Oh fuck! Now that we're over 1,000, we also have to monetize the channel so people can super chat and like bribe us to show feet and shit.
I super chats might be doable, I think. You got to do it without attracting the demonetization eye of Sauron. But as far as I can tell, super chats are independent of general ad monetization. So we actually could do that, I
Yeah, no,
think.
they're not related. Yeah.
We also just got our first. I don't know if you've seen this in the inbox. We cannot disclose who this is from, but I'm pretty sure we just got our first real inquiry from an actual sponsor.
Oh, did we? Oh no, I
So,
didn't see that. I'll have to
yeah,
check that out.
yeah. So we're making some progress on the shilling front. What I'm doing is meta shilling right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Rotten Peace, Texas Domination Fest lineup so far looks fucking sick, dude. And it's like, if I wasn't going to Metal Threat, I would have to seriously consider it. Um, it is. I don't have it in front of me, but just seeing that Wormed was coming was incredibly exciting because
Ooh, that's cool.
yeah, I mean, Wormed. I mean, they're like a festival-only band over here. You don't have a lot of opportunities to see them. There was some other really cool shit on the lineup. I think Carnivore Dippersopus was announced as like the first one. There's just been a ton of cool shit on the lineup. I've sort of fallen out of Slam over the past couple years,
Hmm.
but I mean, not just. I mean, I'm still listening to all the shit that I always listen to, but as far as like exploring new stuff and like looking for new slam bands, I haven't really been. But Texas Domination is just one of the best festivals for that kind of music, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it'll be an amazing time. And I can't wait to see what the entire lineup comes out to be because it would just be fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Although I gotta say, I don't know if I could handle 3 days of that shit. Just 3 days of brutal death and slam would be tiring in a way that would probably take me weeks to recover from. So I don't know. I'm getting old, man.
Also, okay, other stuff. There's other stuff to respond to in the chat. Yo, Nidstank, good to hear from you, man. It's been a minute. I hope you're well. And yeah, we should. Is the future the Terminus King Cobra interview?
Yeah, well, dude, I've always thought that if we had an episode that landed on April 1st, we should review one of his albums.
He has records.
Oh, yeah, dude. King Cobra JFS has a lot of records.
Yeah. There was some good King Cobra talk on the shout out to the Bun Bun Boys, the Bunsen Burner
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
They just had they had Radio Free Innsmouth on recently, and I have never followed the King Cobra drama so much, but I
Yeah.
listened to them talk about him for about like an hour without turning it off.
Oh, dude, the whole sort of lolcow culture thing is something that I've been into for years. I just don't talk about it with you because it's like you're so far outside of that
Yeah,
sort
for
of
sure.
neck of the woods of the internet. You know?
Yes, I discovered deep internet very late and mostly by trickle down. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we'll,
Uh,
I mean, if you're into that, we'll get you into Chris Chan. We'll get you into Cyrax. We could get you
oh
into
well,
Goral World with Amberlin
I,
and shit.
I basically know the Chris Chan basics because a guy who was drunk as shit just ended up hanging out on my porch after the bar once, just showing me and my friend every Chris Chan thing on his phone.
That's so
And I
sick.
was,
Are you sure that
I
wasn't
was
me?
like, oh, he's this sort of old drunk goth dude from my town who's very earnest and I think just slowly realized that he could talk to me about the things he found on the internet. You know, um, but yeah, let's see. Let's see. Cato says, I remember you saying on the review for Innermost, I might enjoy it more after a few months. I haven't gone back to it. I really didn't like that record. Yeah, I think my opinion has not changed. Maybe something will eventually compel me to listen to it again, but I really didn't like that one. It felt phoned in.
Yeah, I
It, it,
haven't gone back to it either. But I mean, I thought it was fun. But I just Hate Forest is not something I'm going to go back to typically.
you hate the forest.
I don't know, man. I mean, that Hate Forest, I would say probably more than any band is like that kind of alongside Graveland as far as shit that you like. It's just stuff that it's like I can respect it, but I think I've just absolutely missed the window on like
Yeah,
connecting with it substantially.
that,
You know what I mean?
that's totally fair, dude. Yeah, I think that makes total
I think you
sense.
you gotta hit those in a pocket in your like late
Yeah.
teens or early 20s, and I just missed it.
Yeah, we've had great, you've said insightful things about both of them and listened to them seriously now. And, if it's just not doing that for you, I totally get it. I mean, those are, if anything, I think too many people pretend to like those bands, right?
Yeah, well, I think like I guess it's kind of weird. Graveland is just something that like I listened to so much stuff that I only understand now, kind of after doing the show, was like completely influenced by Graveland, but I just sort of never listened to the original article to any great degree. But I think it's also a situation where sure, tons of the Slavic black metal I like was heavily influenced by Graveland, but sort of like Incantation, like you can listen to all those bands that
Yes.
come from Incantation, and you don't really need to hear Incantation. As much as I love that, it's like when you talked about when we listened to Onward to Golgotha.
Yeah, I went back to Onward to Golgotha and I was like, damn, I kind of wish I could like hear this 10 years ago,
Yeah,
right? Or
yeah.
15 years ago.
And
Yeah.
but now you're just listening to this total like
Yeah.
prototype
Yeah,
version of
I
shit
missed.
that's elaborated
I
on.
missed the boat on that. I missed the boat on Mortician. Like you played me Mortician years ago. The death metal guy has always been a staunch Mortician truther. Long,
Yeah.
when Mortician was long relegated to the realm of conspiracy theory, the death metal guy strongly contended that Mortician existed, and history has history has validated
I'm like
it. Everyone-
almost pissed at the critical reevaluation of Mortician. I knew it
I
would
know,
happen,
yeah.
but it's like I'm fucking annoyed by it.
Everyone loves Mortician now, including a lot of very silly people. But that's a great band, and you played them for me back in the day. I was like, yeah, this is a great band, but it just, I think it might have had to hit when I was even younger.
Oh yeah, well you're just I mean selling you on any sort of like for lack of a better term, stuff with cyber grind qualities is going to be difficult. That's just a different planet for you.
Yeah, cyber grind is a thing that I think is cool, but I'm not like I totally love the concept. I'm just not going to listen to it much.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Mm.
Pagan of the North says, "Have we ever considered a video or a series covering underground record labels? As someone who's very isolated from a scene or people to talk about extreme metal with, figuring that out took so long." I mean, it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility, but I kind of feel like there's people who are better equipped to do that. You know what I mean? I think there's guys who are more focused on that sort of shit, on this, because like we're like as a podcast, we'll get into historical stuff, but we really do kind of concentrate on contemporary stuff on the main episodes at least. And I think that we know a fair amount about the labels that we like, but I don't know if our knowledge of labels in particular is sophisticated or detailed enough to be super valuable. I don't know. Oh, that's just me talking. I'm speaking for both of us, I guess. Black Metal Guy, what do you think about that?
No, I think that's not really our wheelhouse. I mean, there is other kind of content we could branch out to, but I think for us the primary thing is I think you'd like sooner find us like reviewing. Well, I guess we already basically did review Bone Tomahawk on our last live stream, but you're more likely to find us like reviewing a movie or a book at some point after we get bored of talking about records than like that sort of thing. I mean, honestly, we could just talk. There was something you wanted to talk about tonight, but we could just talk about labels for a while. That's something we could do off the cuff pretty easily. But I think what we would really like to do is just review art.
Yeah, I
right?
think,
Yeah.
like, because we have talked about labels a fair amount on certain episodes. Like, a couple times I've gone into like stuff about early Razorback records when we've gone around shit like that. We've talked about that, or we've talked about a couple other labels, but it's usually like as an adjunct to a record that we're talking about, because I don't know if like it can be interesting to further inform your understanding of a record or a scene, but I don't know if I find talking about a label that interesting in and of itself.
Well, I agree also that figuring it out took a while. I remember, so I guess I knew a lot of music people when I was younger, at least by the time I was in college, but very few real punks and zero metal people, right? And so I remember also that fucking around on Metal Archives until you start to realize, oh wait, now that I have this tool, I can systematically explore stuff, and all of this stuff came from this label, this stuff came from that label. Here's the difference between an LP and an EP. That knowledge you definitely don't pick up automatically. Ironically, that's probably harder to pick up now that hard copy is so almost like it's no longer required, right?
Well, yeah, the concept of these sorts of record formats won't really exist in 10 years.
Unfortunately, something like the Black Metal Promotion channel is like as important as whatever trash label was putting out a ton of trash 20 years ago. These sort of YouTube aggregators are how people are finding things, but certainly good to know that stuff. I would be a little curious if you could tell us what you're wondering about like, do you just want like a guide to cool labels? Because Death Metal Guy and I can certainly bullshit about that for the next hour if we want to default sort of direction for the conversation. We can definitely talk about labels that are cool. Also, Rot in Peace, fuck yeah, Recluse. I didn't listen to them much, but I was a huge fan of Cobalt, and Cobalt died when Phil McSorley left. Yes.
Yeah, fair. Also, yes, big shout out to Naked and Laughing for breaking my boy Cobra's dry spell. I really hope she's fucking pregnant. So, let's see. Eman Risu says, "Did you guys ever try to get an interview with the Extinctionist Records guy?" No, that's Extinctionist Records. That's the anti-natalist DSBM guy, right? Nah, I never reached out to him. I mean, I doubt he would have any interest in it. He doesn't seem like a guy that really wants to do promo shit. So, whatever.
And I find the antinatalism thing a kind of a let's just say not very black metal.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I don't like
As far I've seen him commenting on other shit on the internet. As far as I can tell, he's got great taste in music, and some of his stuff was good. So I don't want to like shit on the dude, but like I think with the concept he's set up for his label and just doesn't. It seems pretty tangent to what we're into.
yeah, and I also like I don't think that someone is. I'm not interested in an interview just because somebody has like an exotic ideology or something. Like that's not really that big a factor for me. I'm more interested in just people who do kind of weird, interesting music that I personally have questions about. Those are the people that I mostly want to interview. You know.
Yeah, yeah. The I mean, yeah, if there's some sort of records that have come out on his label that we've missed over the last few years, you're welcome to throw them in the chat, right? I mean, maybe there's some sort of elephant in the room that we should have paid attention to, and so I open to reviewing other shit from his label if it's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't like followed it. I mean, I really liked that one record that we covered, but I haven't like followed a bunch of his other shit just because I don't have the time for. I'm in my mid-30s. I don't have the time to like delve into a guy with 20 projects that are all like slight variations of DSBM, even if they're really good. I guess like you can be very productive and you can make very good material, but at a certain point I'll still kind of bow out of it just because like I just yeah, I'm not going to fucking hang out on YouTube and just check out black metal tapes for that long these days. Sorry guys, I'm a poser now.
Yeah, the Kato, cool. I'm glad you got into Pregnant Light. That band does kick ass. Damien is a super cool dude. The you should he's got a label too, Colloquial Sound Recordings. So there's a label for you. There's a lot of good shit on that label. He has in addition to that, right, he does a lot of like real hardcore dude stuff. So there's a lot of very noisy, kind of clattering, mysterious guy hardcore and shit. Yeah. Labels, because the hauntologist, Malignant Voices. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, man. When I found Malignant Voices, I think it was when I was like using Bandcamp as a search tool a lot, and I also my bank account felt that one as well. I remember in those days I had a bank account, but it was yeah, I got some CDs and some. I think I've got a patch for Ashes, which was a great band. The
I should get a hauntologist shirt in a size too small. That seems appropriate. Like wear it at the goth club. And like girls will ask me, what is that shirt about? I'm just like, you wouldn't get it.
No, you tell them, what, you don't read Derrida? And they're like, I love Derrida. And you're like, I'm at a goth club. I'm going to fucking shoot myself.
I remember when we were talking about the hauntologist thing, and you were like, yeah, I kind of fucking rolled my eyes at the Derrida thing. It's just like,
yeah.
Your problem is like, you immediately assume that they were approaching it from like, whatever your qualms about Derrida might be, you're like assuming that anyone who references them is coming at it from like exactly the perspective that you hate. Like, maybe
no,
they fucking don't like Derrida either.
I didn't. To be fair, I think it's quite unlikely that the dudes in Miglo would be super into Derrida. I think that's very unlikely. I mean, but the term actually does get used. The term has taken on a life of its own outside Derrida. It's now just generally kind of a theory bro kind of thing.
Oh yeah, isn't it like Mark Fisher took it and ran with it for a while or something?
Yeah, Mark Fisher, and probably once Mark Fisher got it, it's a vibe now. Right now, you're just interested in ghosts and specters and echoes and the persistence of phantasmal pasts in the urban landscape or whatever. That's cool. I mean,
yeah, I mean that all sounds like pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's actually all stuff I'm interested in, right? So I think I think more. It was more that like sometimes very on the even though I'm into philosophy and whatever, very on the nose references in metal often get me a little bit because I'm like, oh, I want you to okay, you don't need to like you don't need to literally reference the thing. You can manifest its influence in metal terms, right? You can make a record that exudes hauntology without calling it hauntologist. You don't need to make a record called like there are all sorts of guys who are just like, I'm going to make an entire record that is Thus Spake Zarathustra. I'm like, you don't need to do that if you just like, make a record that exudes the spirit of Nietzschean overcoming and domination. Then I will understand, right? In other words, if you really like Nietzsche, just make a black metal record, like of any kind.
What you're saying is fair. However, I think that there's a reasonable counter argument to, isn't like perhaps one of the foundational and prevailing principles of metal the idea of just saying the fucking thing directly that you want it to be, you know?
I think it's more like, yes, but you never want like the art to be you never want someone to react to a piece of work and just be like, hey, okay, but why couldn't I just go read Thus Spake Zarathustra? Right. Why do I need a black metal record about it? It's like a medium specificity thing.
Well,
it's
yeah,
like,
but Thus Spake Zarathustra doesn't have any fucking blast beats.
Yeah. I see your point. I mean, look, obviously you can make a really great record and I will automatically not care anymore. Case in point, the Hauntologist record, right? Once I listened to it, I was just like, well, this is a sick record.
Or every record named Twilight of the Gods.
Yeah, really the only thing, yes, really the only thing that I really is sort of more just when I saw it online, I didn't even really look. I knew it had something to do with Migla, but I didn't even really look into the personnel or whatever. And I just saw Hauntologist and I just rolled my eyes. And, and that's just also, that's me being it's me being such an autistic theory bro that I see the name and take it seriously and roll my eyes. So I mean, maybe the joke's on me here because the record was pretty fucking good.
No, it's fair. It's one of your endearing quirks, black metal guy. your autistic fixation on certain aesthetic signifiers.
Well, that's nothing. Yeah, I mean. So that's metal.
That actually kind of segues into like one of the things that I wanted to talk about, which is, well, actually, before I get into that, let me talk about Hack's process. Does anyone find it odd how black metal has become more marketable and more relevant than death metal? Not at all, because black metal is has always been extreme metal swerving toward things more conventionally musical. I think that even early black metal is far more recognizable and like coherent to a regular person than old school death metal. I mean, if we're just talking about stuff released along like at the same time, we'd be looking at like Dark Thrones Ablaze in the Northern Sky and Deicide's Legion. And one is immediately more quantifiable to guys that listen to punk. And it's not the fucking Deicide record. So I think that it only makes sense that as the genres continued to develop, and especially with, the fundamental melodic qualities that started to develop in each style, that black metal would eventually overtake death metal in terms of whatever you want to call it, accessibility, popularity, coherence to the average listener. As black metal became a style of extreme metal concentrated on primarily melodic riffing, I think we can all agree that's the heart of black metal now is melodic riffing. it was always going to naturally appeal to a wider audience when compared to death metal, where the center of it is still founded on dissonant riffing. I think that just makes sense.
I mean, yeah, it's a sort of once black metal got rid of its death metal, realized that it didn't need the death metalisms, right? And that the ideas that, Euronymous and Varg introduced in the early 90s were really, oh, this isn't just an interesting addition to the death metal tendencies, right? This is actually like, this is the thing we're doing that death metal isn't. Yeah, I think the black metal started to realize its sort of genre-specific qualities, right? And then the other part of the process has to be black metal bands listening to Swedish black death bands. So by the middle of the 90s, you get Gorgoroth releasing black metal records that sound much more like death metal records coming out of Sweden 4 years before. Or 3 years before. So there's sort of a sorting out of things where in the early stuff you can find melodic, and you could find more conventionally melodic and musical stuff in death metal and very dissonant, gnarly stuff in black metal. But then those qualities, for whatever reason, tend to find their way to one genre. And death metal becomes the sort of obscure, atonal thing. I mean, the weird irony is that death metal is the only one of these genres that got a concerted corporate push by real corporation, back when the record industry existed, right? They were trying to make Cannibal Corpse the next big thing.
Yeah, the Giant Records push of the early 90s.
Yeah. People are always like, oh, why didn't it work? Well, you tell me, Sherlock, right? It turns out that the youth of America were not sort of they weren't sold on chromatic scales for 8 minutes.
Well, it's kind of funny because I actually had a conversation about that exact historical period with my girlfriend the other day, and there are answers to it from people in the music industry, which is like there were people in the record industry who did think that death metal was really cool and thought that it had potential, but I forget who it was. This was in a book that I read a while back, but some major label head was saying that the problem with death metal was that it was all on a single emotional wavelength. They said that they never thought the extremity of the timbres or the speed or the technicality was ever the issue. It was the monotonous emotional quality of it. And then if you actually look at the timeline, you got to think it through. What happens right after the failed push? You get you get the first Korn record, and you get early nu metal, and all those early nu metal guys are death metal people. And if you really dig into what was happening to a lot of death metal bands in the mid to late 90s, a lot of those guys started to pivot either to incorporating more sort of groove metal elements into their music, or just starting nu metal bands. The one that I always like,
or to playing sort of emotive heavy metal, right? You get the sort of tendency to the heart work tendency.
Yes,
right.
But my favorite example is an awesome old like kind of grindy tech death band called Oppressor that did like 3 albums in the 90s. Awesome band, like early Century Media, like pre-Century Media, Olympic Recordings. Put out 3 awesome records that are unfortunately forgotten now, and then like the entire band except for the vocalist went on and started the nu metal band Soil. And like you can just look at that and you see the broken heart at the center of that, of like guys who tried to make it work. And even their last album as a death metal band, Elements of Corrosion, has these sort of overtures to kind of like jump to fuck up rhythms and shit, and they're executed awesome because they don't understand that they can't do those at 284 BPM. So you've just got these like brutally complicated groove parts that sound fucking sick, but then it all falls apart and they become a nu metal band. But yeah, so wrapping back around, basically, the effort was made to domesticate death metal. But
it didn't work, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Black metal, hilariously, is more open to that kind of domestication. And I think that it's what you said was really salient, the idea of a genre, sort of refines itself down into a few essential elements over time. And that kind of relates to something that we've talked about on the show with like our taste in death and black metal, each of us individually, where I talk about how I don't have a lot of interest in a lot of in most like very dissonant black metal, because I go to death metal for heaviness and dissonance, and I specifically go to black metal for like romantic melody.
And it's related to the thing that it's actually related to the point I was making about music versus philosophy, right? When I was saying like, look, I want my black metal album, my metal records don't have to wear their highbrow reference points completely on their sleeves, right? You got to digest it and turn it into retarded songs about, marauding, right? Or turn it into a song about, yelling at the cosmos. And I can tell that, right, there should be this sort of gorked, if you're writing black metal lyrics, there should be this sort of just gorked hallucinatory imagery that is not going to read like a philosophy textbook, right? Do the thing that the genre is good at. I'm just sorry to bring that back, but it's sort of a similar point. It's like death metal and black metal both have specific things that they are good at, and there's always something to be said for a death metal band that is really melodic or a black metal band that is really dissonant. But in either of those cases, you might you're going to end up making comparisons to the other one. At least I think at this point in the game. Let's see some other things. The other thing, the caveat I would say to that is that black metal has not been domesticated. What has happened, which is, this is, if they had succeeded in domesticating death metal, this is what would have happened, is that an entire proxy black metal scene has been created.
Yeah,
right?
I know you're sort of the alternate universe black metal show.
Yes, there's an alternate universe of black metal. The stuff that is all over.
I'm sorry. I'm telling Wilkins to shut up. Ignore
no
me.
worries. The sort of just you scroll through YouTube and you just look at them and you're like, what are these fucking bands? All these bands with these sort of elaborate, colorful covers or whatever, and this like glossy pop production. I'm like, what bands? Where are they getting this? What are these? And then there's the bands that are the sort of meticulous proxies of hardcore underground bands that are more socially acceptable and have the end sanded off them.
Yeah, well, let's just say it out loud. It's just all the RABM proxies for NSBM bands.
Yes, and all the things that don't call themselves RABM because they're too cunning, but it's all about just politically sanitized stuff. Yeah. So like Lamp of Murmur, Sidon, what the fuck? There are a few others, right? There are whole labels at this point dedicated to. I've seen even like RABM bands using labels using sun wheels that are obviously RABM labels. It's getting pretty weird out there. There's a whole sort of you can find a sanitized proxy for even the most extreme and socially marginal genres of black metal. And all of this has been cultivated. The labels, the big record labels couldn't have done it. All of this has been cultivated by sort of underpaid, dedicated, underpaid internet journalists and sort of PR people at, small labels, and also by the bands themselves. But it's a very strange sort of cultural engineering project. And that's sort of Terminus is founded on not paying attention to any of it. Although increasingly, like we talk, here I am complaining about it, but the point is, we didn't complain about it for a long time, right? You just review the records that are good.
Yeah.
It was definitely easier to create a sanitized, astroturfed version of black metal because of the pretty melodies, and as someone else in the chat said, because of the distinctive aesthetic. That's huge.
Yeah,
right?
Black metal has a much more like packageable aesthetic
And
than death metal ever did.
it's a symbol. Early death metal had a very clear aesthetic, but it wasn't clear how it was different from other metal, and it required being sort of like a just like a big smelly dude, right? Who just, was getting drunk in the parking lot and, just blasting Cannibal Corpse. It did not have something. It was very difficult to romance. If you popularize and vulgarize the death metal aesthetic in the '90s, what you get is like Beavis and Butthead, right? And it turns out nobody wanted to be Beavis and Butthead. So whereas the black metal thing is much more easily to assimilate to things that people find gothic and romantic, right? So, it turns out black metal is just about, sumptuous curtains and sexual deviance.
Yeah, it's about being
right.
It's about girls.
Yeah. It's about girls.
That's
yes,
that's also a small but like crucial thing is like girls like black metal 10 times more than they like death metal across the fucking board.
And that means, and we're not just saying, like, there are women who are very authentically interested in black metal, but there are just more of them.
Yeah,
right?
just so much more. Women glom onto the aesthetic and the musical markers of black metal so much more than death metal. I've always wondered about it. There's something just more inherently feminine about black metal, I think.
Yeah, and just, it's the gothic and romantic side of black metal is accessible, whether to authentic weirdo girls who get really into black metal or to girls who read Twilight, right?
Yeah.
Or were really into Twilight. Black Braid, yes.
Yeah. Real quick, a couple more questions from up top. Landfish asked, is black metal more marketable and relevant than deathcore was at its peak? I don't know. What does that mean? More marketable and relevant? These are pretty vague terms. Overall, from my own estimation, yes, deathcore is already basically over. Yeah, like the deathcore audience is aging out, and like the Zoomers are getting older. So
black metal has an image that people want to co-opt, and I mean, and you see that everywhere. It has percolated all over the culture, and I think, I mean, even the fact that like we are now having even now that people are like freaking out about a Burzum influenced Kanye West record, there you go. Black metal is more marketable and relevant, right? It's
Pagan of the North, also, wouldn't the grunge kids be more likely to be sucked into black metal as opposed to death metal? No, the grunge kids were never going to be sucked into metal. They were going to go on, and they were just going to become like white collar office
indie
workers.
rockers.
Yeah, it didn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Also,
musically, what happened to grunge was it disappeared briefly and then was rebranded as something called sludge or stoner doom.
Yeah, like some people, guys who were into, well, it's not that the same guys are into both, it's the same type of guy is into both those things. Yeah. And there's like different levels of it. More like you could be like a pretty gross serious grunge guy and you'd be into Noothgrush now, or you're kind of like a pussy dilettante, you're into Thou, but it's the same spectrum.
You go far enough into the background on grunge, guys like Tad, like the Tad or whatever basically translates pretty well into just a sludge sensibility or whatever. It's basically just the latent, all the metal that the grunge guys liked just becomes the grunge substitute. It's basically like people stop listening to Nirvana and they start listening to Melvins, right?
Yeah.
That's
Also, I blame Anthrax for new metal. Nah, new metal was going to happen regardless. Also, a lot of people don't really understand the sort of, I don't know, it's looking back culturally on the 80s as hip-hop started to come up, it was such a bizarre musical landscape to navigate. Like, if you go back and you read some, like, actual music criticism from that time, it's extremely funny because, like, watching white music journalists attempting to navigate hip-hop is like watching apes studying the fucking monolith at the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, just because they're acting like it's they seem so discombobulated by what they're hearing. like in a way that we sort of fundamentally can't growing up with hip hop. I don't know. So anyway, so the idea of like novelty mixtures of rock and hip hop was totally inevitable. And I think that the
And
real
basically
impulse,
had been happening since the beginning. The
yeah,
whole game was like, how can we sell it to white people? Was just like, what if we used a rock? What if we sampled like Motley Crue, right?
yeah,
The whole Beastie Boys is that's the Beastie
yes,
Boys.
and then it
You know?
then it turned out, how do you sell it to white people? You just make good hip hop, and they just like it naturally.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah,
It's,
surprise! People like good music.
yeah.
What black metal film or documentary do you guys enjoy to watch the most? None of them.
None of them.
They're fucking. It's all whatever. It's either documentary shit about things that I already know, or it's sort of like pensive NPR emotional humanist interview stuff that doesn't interest me either. I don't have any interest in any of that
Back
stuff.
in the day, everyone always asked me if I'd seen Until the Light Takes Us, and none of these people listened to black metal, which made sure I would never see Until the Light Takes Us.
I
Right?
saw it. It's like mildly interesting, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think I like am not I like read text interviews, but yeah, I never sat down and read any of the books. I never watched any of the documentaries. The documentaries are, yeah, pretty much all corny. And the books, like, I think the death metal guy and I probably got our lore pretty similarly, which is just reading a ton of things. You get snatches of things in Metal Archives reviews, snatches of things in print mags, snatches, little, oh, here's a 10-minute clip of Varg saying something interesting or far out. Here's I remember like you get the Lords of Chaos perspective earlier. I remember reading a lot of Varg's blog posts about the
Mm-hmm.
early scene, which are interesting, right? And but like it's all very unsystematic. I read a great there were tons of and to some extent still are, just nobody goes to them, but there was a whole network of weird one-off sort of idiosyncratic blog spots and shit that did interviews. Like I read a great Pagan Hellfire interview 15 years ago that stuck with me. As far as I know, that's still like the only Pagan Hellfire interview. It's yeah, you just pick things up from that. So like I'm sure that sometimes when the death metal guy and I talk about like some of the scene lore from the 90s or whatever, we're like it's like misinformation, but I also don't care because
Yeah,
it's a
it
myth
doesn't
and
really
that's how it
matter.
works.
Yeah.
Yes, and if it turns out that we are getting something wrong, it's because we were making some sort of we were making a point, right? And maybe like a sort of creative association, and maybe there's something to the point, even if we were factually wrong.
Yeah,
Best, yeah.
I mean the mythology of second wave black metal is, I don't know. It's like a topic that I have like almost zero interest in
Yeah, I
anymore.
will never. If I go to Norway, I will never fucking go to that black metal store and get my
Go to
photo taken in the
Helvete.
basement. Oh
Yeah,
God,
no, thank
Rob,
you. I'm not
Rod
gonna.
Miller said a good thing about Stonehenge. She said the magic is gone. Right, that place is dead. It's been drained from it. Right, you don't get anything by going and taking a selfie in front of the Helvete sign.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I knew that shit was blown, and that's kind of interesting. Talking about the marketability of black metal. Um, it's sort of like that scene in The Big Short where he runs into like a stripper that wants to talk about flipping houses, and that's how he knows everything's over. I knew that black metal was over the first time some normie like asked me if I'd ever heard of this crazy band Mayhem, where
Mhm.
like the singer killed himself and they took pictures of it, and then he got fucking stabbed later. Like, the idea of black metal as this like incorruptible entity is something that's people still cling on to. And yeah, God bless them for trying to, I guess.
It's
But
an incorruptible spirit, but that has relatively little to do with 75% of the manifestations of the supposedly black metal things, right? Yeah. it's yeah. So I don't know. Let's see. We've got people are good. People are arguing with each other in chat, which is awesome. Keep doing it. And you should definitely use words that get us demonetized before we're even monetized.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
would be pretty tight, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the fact that people are discussing among themselves, good.
Yeah.
Nobody did that for years.
Well, actually, you see now, you see you've missed it because you've been such a fucking absent father to the Discord. We've had like 5 new people join in the past week, dude.
I just scanned over it today, and I was pleased. I sort of, in my absent father way, I was quietly pleased.
You'll send a fucking birthday card with $5 in it.
I'll send a whole carton of milk. The
Rotten Peace, Noise PE Industrial will never lose its mystique.
Not true.
Not true.
They're coming for Noise PE Industrial.
They will, and I mean it's already happened, but it's already happened. The only reason it hasn't happened more is because it's of such a limited interest in general.
Yeah.
But like, dude, there's plenty of New York art guys that have taken Noise and PE and they've sanded off the edges of it and they fucking made it like good, clean fun, for the politically aware.
I think the thing is, it never will go so far. It will never go as far because, as with death metal, the music is just. You can make a version of black metal without any of the rough edges, and it sounds very pleasing to the ear.
And it still essentially sounds like black metal.
Yeah, it's still sort of recognizably, okay, this is blast beats and streaming tremolo and blah, 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 right? You really can't make. I mean, God knows they tried to sell Pharmacon, right? But normal people won't listen to Pharmacon.
Or
right?
what about who is that? That chick.
Also, Pharmacon was pretty good, and I'm not actually. She was very authentic. But
no, there was
a big hipster push to popularize it because it was a woman doing it. And
I didn't know that Pharmacon was a chick, but there was another chick. I never listened to it, but like Lingua Ignota. Wasn't that?
Oh God! Ugh.
Wasn't that like feminist power electronics?
Yeah,
or something.
I don't think that was even power electronics. That was like an art school person doing this kind of like. I think it was like almost more singer songwriter. It was like power electronics singer songwriter crap. It was like Lingua Ignota was just Chelsea Wolfe 2. Right. It was. They tried one model, which is what if we do the female, like the record labels, the culture industry tried one model. What if we did sort of like female singer songwriter, but it's like real like edgy neo folk, Death in June, Psychic Youth. Oh wait, we can't say Death in June. And then they tried it again with Lingua Ignota, and she seems to have been really successful in part because she presents herself as an artist.
Which I think is like, and Lingua Ignota really just seems like a, like a boring version of like Diamanda Galas with like the serial numbers filed off. Because it's like Diamanda Galas is cool and Jarbo is cool.
Yes.
And it's like that shit already exists though. Lingua Ignota doesn't seem to be doing anything, just seems to be doing a sort of like lamer version. Like, until you can get something that is as, like, feminine and aggressive and, like, outspokenly political, even within the ideology that you guys want to promote as Plague Mass, like, what are we doing? What's even the point? Like Plague Mass came out, and that was fucking huge. I mean, and that's still, like, a really riveting thing to listen to. And even, well, I don't know. I was going to say even like it would fit with like nowadays political sensibility, but I think it might be like a little bit too raw and ugly. So
a little too much
problem.
A little too much Medea.
A little bit too much about what AIDS is actually like,
Yeah. I think there have already been, basically, yes, there's already a ton of noise, power, electronic stuff that has a lot of social cachet and that, like, trendy people listen to. But for obvious reasons, it's never going to be big business.
And then, of course, there's always the question of it, especially when it comes to, like, industrial subgenres, so to speak, or noise subgenres, so much of which is really carried by aesthetics. If you're making power electronics that isn't about all the things power electronics is about isn't power electronics anymore. I mean, I don't know if you can make that argument about other genres of music, but given how
Well,
wrapped up in aesthetics those styles are, I think you could.
yeah, I mean, I make that argument about black metal. It's just black
Yeah.
metal is about certain things, and if it's not about those things, it's not black metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's yeah, the but yeah, so okay, this is all right. So Posers Flayed. Do you want to take a short break and then talk about record labels?
Sure, we could do that. I could also jump off it. This is all like dovetailing into like my original topic idea. Funny
Oh,
enough.
okay, cool. Well, I need to go like piss and eat a little more pizza. So if you want to keep rolling, you
No,
can. If
that's
not,
that's
we can
fine.
take a short
I'll
break.
take a short break. I'm gonna use the bathroom and grab something to drink, and then I'll probably pop on before you. I'll talk to the guys, and then you just come on when you're ready.
All right,
All right,
cool.
guys, we'll be right back. All right, boys, I'm back at least. So let's dim the lights and compare grinder profiles. Let's see. Noise fans, ironic shit posters that were horseshoed into legitimate brain rot. Kinda. I mean, I'm definitely on the unrestricted internet access to power electronics pipeline. I think that's definitely a defined concept at this point. Yeah, the drink, the estrogen pre-workout spiking story from that Tennessee hardcore band is pretty phenomenal. I really like that one. Almost too good to be true, but maybe just like exactly good enough to be true. Oh, by the way, Hacks Process, which one are you? I assume you are the one that I talk to the most on Facebook, but I'm not sure who runs that account. Got my sparkling ice lemonade. It's a delicious soda substitute with only 5 calories. Hey Lothar, how you doing, man? I figured it was always you commenting, but I wasn't 100%. What happened to fighting your boys for the hoe? Nobody does that anymore. I mean, and plus, I mean, how great could this girl have been? She was the girlfriend of some guy in a no-name Tennessee hardcore band. I mean, she couldn't have been worth fighting over. But yeah, what an elaborate way to steal a girl. Very complicated. I usually just do it by asserting my dominance in the form of dance or something. Yeah, I think that is substantially more plausible actually than trying to steal the girl. Is just that he wanted to turn his bandmate into a femboy. Like, there's probably a Dujin like about that exact scenario somewhere out there. Oh, I haven't seen any pictures of the guys. That would be pretty fun. Oh, God. Got a Ms. Apples next to the laptop now. You don't get to hear her on the show very much, but she is very small and very sweet. Here's my little rare limited edition orange lady. So tiny. Possibly the world's smallest cat. Yeah, Wilkins he loves to hear himself talk. He is definitely the honorary third or fourth mic on the podcast. I've sometimes thought about, like, one day, if our audience becomes big and autistic enough, some guy will eventually make a Wilkins supercut of every peep in every episode. I wonder how long it would be. Oh, Apples, come on. Quit falling over. What are you doing? God. Do you have to groom, like, right next to the microphone? A cat version of the Winter Solace guy. Actually, yeah, in terms of personality, he is kind of spazzy. No, Wilkins is a tuxedo. He is a tuxedo with a half mustache. Yeah, Wilkins, I'm talking about you. Why are you yelling? He just yells so much. No, definitely has that orange cat personality. But no, Apples is actually my little orange lady. And then Moira, who you never hear on the show, she is an old calico lady. And she is kind of ornery, but I love her all the same. Oh, man. Mr. Wilkins, why are you shouting? You got plenty of food. It's definitely not about that. Yeah, what is the Winter Solace guy up to now? Probably recording a podcast about how the moon doesn't actually exist or something. Apples, why do you gotta do big baths when I'm trying to record and talk to all my close personal friends on the internet? Oh, that would have been a good one. Should just play videos of fish swimming around on a laptop and record all the sounds. Get one of those little lizard chasing apps for the phone for the cats to play with. Pagan of the North, I think that could happen, us and RFI. I've talked to Giab a little bit. He's a cool guy. And then, I mean, RFI was pretty influential on us early on in the show. And I think that he was talking to the Bunsen Burner guys, and he said he'd be down to come on with us. So, yeah, I think that it's pretty doable. I think it's just a matter of figuring out, like, what, like, structure that episode would take and, like, how we would incorporate him. Wilkins, don't shout. Be polite. Anyway. But yeah, so I think that's something that we will probably work on at one point. Just, I couldn't tell you what sort of thing it would be. Hold on. Let me grab this guy. Oh, great. Now he's running away and he wants to play chase. No, thank you. Oh, shut up. You're so disruptive. Go jump on the microwave. Yeah. Exactly what I said. Is it K-pop? I thought it was all J-pop stuff. I mean, I don't really know. I don't follow any of that shit, but I always assumed that Geob was more of a straight weeb than like a Koreaboo. Oh, Cobra samples are always good. I don't know. I've actually been. I don't know. I didn't react to it earlier, but somebody said Goral World is awful. I don't know, man. I'm kind of into that shit. I watched all the episodes of Snowflake Shaped by the Algorithm, and I'm pretty into Amberlin shit now. Alright, I've secured Wilkins, so maybe I'll shut up. Yeah, I figured that, I figured the J-pop thing. Trey's YouTube channel is taken down. Fuck if I know, man. Like, who cares? I don't, like... You know, you talk about... We talk all the time about how Tampa death metal is cringe, and look at you, like... falling into that shit, like following individual YouTube channels. Come on, dude. I haven't really watched the bite-sized doc stuff just because I'm pretty brushed up on my Cobra lore. So I've just been watching like Boglum Chronicles. He'll do the recaps, and I usually stay up to date on those. Will Christery ever end? I don't know, man. That's like... it's crazy, but I realized the other day that I've actually been following Chris Chan for, like, probably half my life at this point. Because I've been following him since I was a teenager. And, yeah, I don't know if it'll ever end. I don't know if Chris is, like... the thing is, like, everyone's, is Chris going to die? Chris is not going to die anytime soon. And I think that the arcs and the sagas will never really be over. I mean, there's weird shit going on right now, and I'm along for the ride all the way. Kaido, I don't know. I get the sense that Flaming Ouroboros, that it was like... I doubt it was us specifically. It seems he's been on, like, some weird shit for a while. I don't follow the guy, so I don't really know anything about it, but I know that he, like, took the project private or whatever. I'm sure he was annoyed by what we said, but as much as I would like to say, oh, we're the guys who fucked it all up, it's like, nah, I don't think so. I think he's got something else going on, and we're probably very tertiary to that. Oh yeah, Only Use Me Blade is like grim as fuck. Except, I've tried to follow Only Use Me Blade lore, but like him or any of those sort of like IP2 people, it's so fucking hard to get like a coherent picture of like what the story is, like point by point, just because it's so much of it's just buried in these like, incoherent live streams. I don't know. It's the juice was never really worth the squeeze on any of those people for me, or like weird kick streamers, stuff like that. Like streamer oriented shit, at least like the current form of it, has never really been my thing. And yeah, getting that China from Flutter, I am interested in what the real identity of Flutter might be. If she is like sort of a deep state troll, or if she's like a legit Heartsuite. Oh, we'll just have to figure it out. Cyrax I follow here and there, but he's like pretty repetitive, and I don't find just like the freakouts themselves that entertaining, so I just pop in on that every once in a while. Yeah, IP2 is just like just deeply IP2 is just like deeply obnoxious people. I feel like a good lolcow needs to have a strange grain, like a kernel of likability to them, and none of the IP2 people have that. And Blade, yeah, Blade is kind of grim, especially because I used to like his COD videos back when I was a kid, and it's kind of upsetting to see where he's gone. Yeah, the Chris Chan history videos. I assume you're talking about the Geno Samuel stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've been following him since I was a kid, so I don't really need it. And it tends to be pretty dry, so I've never gotten through the whole thing. Yeah, I've heard the Finnish thing. You're probably, what, you're reading the same thread on Kiwi Farms, I'm guessing, where they're trying to puzzle it out. Um, yeah, the Plum Corp stuff has been good, although I think it remains to be seen whether it really has staying power beyond Dracula Flow, but I'll definitely check it out. Uh, Baked Alaska, dude, I've never gotten into that. Like, Baked Alaska, Ethan Ralph, the Killstream stuff, that whole, like, weird, like basement dweller right-wing grifter content creator thing, I've never found any interest in. Like, all those people just seem really repellent. And I just don't know, where's the entertainment? It's just retards screaming at retards. Oh, I'm on Kiwi Farms a fair amount. Like, especially when it's slow at work, I'll just browse random mega threads and just see what's going on. I'm not like, I don't follow anything diligently on Kiwi Farms because there's so much white noise posting, but it is just the place to get moment to moment updates on what any of these characters are up to. Yeah, Ethan Ralph, his existence does seem to be pretty terrible, but given how little I know about it, I couldn't really say more. Although, isn't he the guy that like got mugged in Portugal or something? I think I remember that story being pretty funny. No, no corner office. I mean, fuck, I'll be, in between anything important happening at work, and I'll just have my phone. I'm definitely not pulling any of that shit up on, on my actual, my actual monitor. No. Justin RPG is like cool and funny, but it's very one note. Like he's got like these weird fetishes and this bad art, but he doesn't really like react to people fucking with him or anything. And people don't really seem to be interested in fucking with him. He's not like a reactive lolcow. I mean, he seems like extremely autistic, like more than most. So he's cool, but there's just not a whole lot going on. Like, just an RPG just sort of is the idea of just an RPG, and that's about it. my slam goon cave, definitely. Wilkins, oh my god, why are you being such a little bitch? Yeah, the stolen purse. Medicare, I used to watch some Medicare content early on, but again, it feels like it all gets turned into these like fucking drawn out 4-hour live streams of just him sort of sitting around talking to chat and ridiculing people that everybody else is ridiculing already. I've never really gotten the point. I mean, is it just he's better at ridiculing these same people that everyone's already ridiculing? Or, I don't know. And didn't Medicare start with kind of like, you know, like liberals owned content or something, and then sort of move into internet blood sports from there? I might be misremembering, but I think he like tread in those waters for a while at least.
I'm back.
Jesus Christ, dude. Holy fuck. I've been fucking sitting here entertaining these guys for like 20 minutes.
Was it 20 minutes?
Something like that. Dude, you have no concept of time.
I don't. That's one of my major personal weaknesses.
We've already got a new host, dude. You were gone too long. We've been talking about fucking weird internet lolcow shit the whole time.
All right, well, I'm back.
You can learn all about weird, just lolcow mythos. And... oh, man.
All right, so what was the new topic you wanted?
Okay, so kind of a thing spinning off from all these, like... everything. Every time we do one of these live streams, I think this is like 3 times now, we've always managed to like sort of converge onto these like pseudo like culture war adjacent topics, which is you know, it just comes with the territory, I guess.
Sure. That's what's happening now.
Yeah, and it's what people are into. I got it, you know.
Yep.
Anyway, so something that I find interesting, because we've had this conversation. I know that I specifically brought it up, maybe on the first live stream, the idea of all mainstream media, mainstream fiction turning into a kind of morality play.
Yeah.
And now just over the past month or two, the YouTube sort of commentary community and video essayist sphere has really gotten into that concept. Sort of calling out that idea, but in a way that's very weird, because all these people on YouTube are talking about it being an issue of media literacy, you know, as though sort of the Zoomers and younger are unable to understand that depiction of something in art is not an endorsement of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And because all these video essayists just steal shit from each other, they're all kind of coming to that same conclusion that this is like this massive media literacy issue and just something very weird is going on psychologically. Here's my thing, and here's what I want to talk about. Here's my hot take. It's not a fucking media literacy issue. All these kids are aware that a depiction is not necessarily an endorsement. This is just a weapon for social positioning that they're all using against each other. And I don't know why everyone is pretending that any of these fucking things are done in good faith. That's what I want to talk about. Is this bizarre insistence that we have to treat the way these people behave as though it's like a good faith thing when it is just absolutely not.
Well, so I might need to know more what you're talking about because I think you're probably talking a lot about video game reviews and stuff, right?
But not even necessarily
There's
that. Movies, TV shows,
okay,
anything.
okay. Because I follow some of that stuff, like, here's why X. It's always when I want some negative dopamines, I'm not above watching it. Here's why, X or Y Z new woke version of something sucks. I'll be like, yeah, it does suck.
Yeah.
um, as I waste another 15 minutes of my life. But uh, so I think I know what you're talking about, but there might be some specific. So the specific thing isn't just, oh, media is propagandistic now, which is obvious, but but media is it's the angle they're using is it's modern media has become a morality play.
Well, no, I
Which
think I think
or that viewers want or that kids want it to be a morality play and are confused when it isn't.
the well, I think it's sort of multiple arguments being made at the same time. I think the idea that all the media is a sort of morality play. Okay, so yeah, to be more specific, that they all want it to be a morality play. That
Right,
the
right.
the viewers specifically want that, and when viewers are decrying things for being problematic,
Mm-hmm.
just because it is depicting, I don't know, fucking whatever vicissitude of reality is depicted in a fictional setting.
Sure, movie depicts violence against a woman.
Yeah,
People are like, "Oh my God, how could you depict that?" And the movie is just like, "I don't know, didn't." And then the critics are like, "Wait, didn't you notice it was the bad guy who was violent against a woman?"
yeah.
Right?
But so what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like all these video essayists and all these people are talking about, and you'll see this in both left and right wing spheres. Everybody with 105 IQ is talking about how everyone with a 100 and less IQ is lacking media literacy. What I'm suggesting is that those 105 IQ people are actually retarded because they can't see the game of social positioning that's being played. None of the people decrying these depictions legitimately think that they represent endorsement of those actions on the part of the creators. This is merely a thing that they use to position themselves socially. Because being offended and to call out the offense of others is like a primary social tactic now that positions
Sure,
you
okay.
as being high
Yeah.
value.
Well, that's certainly right. Yeah, it's sort of an informant culture, right? We
Yes.
have a decentralized version of we have a soft totalitarian informant culture.
Yeah,
And if you
we
want
have
to score points, if you want to score points with obviously not everyone, but with elite institutions, high status institutions, then you want to be show that you're able to call out heresy.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
the
yeah.
panopticon of the commons.
Right. In a way, that is media literacy, right? Can you call out heresy? Can you indicate heresy?
Oh yeah, no, I was
Right.
actually
Yeah.
thinking about that today. Is like the actual reality is that they're extremely media literate because they know exactly how they are supposed to behave.
Yeah.
When confronted with these things.
That said, I do think there is something to a sort of breakdown in media literacy, but I've seen it but yeah, I might, hmm, you might be right, right? That like there's an insane amount of just bad faith efforts to nail someone for something,
Hmm.
right? So you play well. Playing stupid is an important part of this ideology, right? You have to
Yes,
learn to
yes.
play stupid, right? If somebody makes a good point or talking about a factor you hadn't considered, you have to pretend that it's not a factor. Um, Learning to play stupid or um, or being pretending you can't associate two related phenomena, right? This is all mechanisms of compartmentalization depend on playing stupid. So I guess I could see it that there's a kind of learned stupidity, right? Like, oh my God, this game shows X, therefore it promotes it. wait, also, I feel like we need, but at the same time, there is a, so there's like a learned stupidity, which in a way is good faith, right? It's like, it's a learned bad faith, but it's being done in earnest. It's weird, really weird. And probably it gets so reflexive that people don't realize they're playing stupid, right? The person who's playing dumb with you in an argument does not necessarily realize that.
Well, I think this is a place where you and I tend to differ. Just in conversations like this that we've had over the years, you are much more willing to attribute a lot of this kind of behavior to a sort of like genuine stupidity, whereas I read it much more conspiratorially than you do.
Well, not genuine. I think I'm reading it more in a sort of ideology critique thing, where not capital C critique, but
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about ideology. That the interesting thing about culture is it makes them do things in that might seem to us really stupid, but makes them do it in good faith, right? And or make them do things that could seem really bad, but do it in good faith. Now, I mean, I know that you agree with that, right? I mean, obviously, like we can both agree there's ways that people think they're being good people while doing bad things. But yeah, I think you're right. You might be more willing to assume a kind of I see your point. Certainly, there's a lot of base cunning in the world. And uh, let's see. Yeah, so I've got like a couple. Well, I think we can have our cake and eat it too, basically. Or I think we can agree, basically. I think I could agree with you that there's an earnest effort to inculcate learned stupidity. And that there is this habit of cunning gets transmitted. TLDW, what we on about? Yeah, I see what you mean. We're very abstract. DK. What I was going to do then is, can we talk about an example? My guess is what you're talking about is the conversation about hell divers. Is that it?
I'm not talking about anything specific. I'm
Mm,
talking about something
okay.
I've just seen play out like a dozen
Okay.
times over the past few weeks. These specific kinds of video essays. I mean, really, the
Can,
real
can
point
you
of
name a couple for our listeners or even for me? Because we are kind of like talking in
well, no,
orbit
because
right
that's
now.
because I'm not talking about the conversation about a particular piece of media. I'm talking about this genre of like video essayists talking about this broad
Yeah.
concept, and like and what I find interesting, like more than any of the individual ideas, is that the idea that this sort of behavior could be a bad faith social climbing practice is never fucking addressed in any of these videos. And that's deliberate.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, I think
Because I've got a whole idea that branches off of this, you know.
no, it absolutely is. That is an idea you have to consider, and there's a lot to it. I think it makes sense. It's informed culture, and people have considered that when talking about, say, like, um, talking about the universities and stuff. I think that's a recognized form of behavior that you negotiate for status by being able to sort of call out someone. But like, and that might involve a lot of bad faith, a lot of instances. I mean, yeah, I mean, shit, I've seen it happen. But the but maybe not in this realm of culture, right? Maybe the assumption is that, oh, the poor Zoomer kids, they're media illiterate, they don't know, right?
Yeah,
And
no, that's the way
and
it's being
and
positioned.
and it's like, no, what they have learned is a form of base cunning, which they have learned from their Zoomer and or their boomer Gen X and really millennial teachers,
Yes.
right? It's yes.
No.
The art
So
of playing stupid was perfected by millennials.
the like I know what you're talking about with the Helldivers thing. The Helldivers thing is two groups of people simultaneously trying to be unfathomably fucking stupid. And like
Totally agree about that.
that is two groups of people because the Helldivers thing is whoever says it out loud loses. That's the way that entire fucking argument is
Yes,
positioned.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Because it's like
I mean, Okay, well, I guess we gotta like say it out
Okay,
loud. So
okay.
what are
No,
the
no, I
two?
was sorry. I was just reading something Pagan of the North said. I've said
Oh,
my 10
nice.
cents. Please jump the conversation about labels or tie this to metal to make it really toxic. I mean, I'm sure we'll get around to it being about metal. Okay, so the I don't know the whole thing about Helldivers. I haven't played it, but it's basically Starship Troopers, right?
Um, I think yes, I've watched some footage of it. It seems actually like a pretty fucking boring game,
Yeah,
I've
so
got to
it's
say.
it's totalitarian space marines against like bad space bugs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's Starship Troopers. Got it. So which is
It is,
exactly
yeah,
the
it
same
is
thing.
the Starship Troopers game. Yes.
People on the pseudo left say, "Don't you see the humans are actually the bad guys?" People on the pseudo right say, "Yeah, but these are like really big evil bugs. Don't you want to kill them?" People on the pseudo left say, "You're being fascist." People on the pseudo right say, "How is this supposed to be fascist?"
Oh, that's
When the real thing is that they're both identifying the same thing, which is that it is kind of pseudo fascist, but in a way that a lot of people like, but nobody can say that out loud.
absolutely. No, I think you're
Yeah.
really, I mean, I'm sure that I don't think it's just the pseudo left, like the real left would be committed to that argument as well, I think. It,
I know like
although
serious left people I know serious left people that don't give a fuck about the bug video game.
sure,
So
sure,
which is a
exactly. Yes.
principled stance, to not care about the bug
Right,
video
right.
game.
There are individual leftists who would just be like, "This is silly. We don't care about it." And obviously, we understand that the bugs are bad guys. They're aliens that eat your brain. Right. I recognize that. I'm just saying, if you were going to apply a left wing heuristic to the game, it would go one way, which
Mm-hmm.
is bugs bad. Um, but the or bugs humans bad.
Yeah, yeah.
But the you're absolutely right about that. There's this whole sort of um yes, absolutely the same thing within 40K. We actually talked about that a bit last time. It's yes, it's these people. The real problem here is the sort of insincere the bad faith argument from the pseudo right.
Yes, yes.
Right?
I
They
really want to address
obviously
that.
like it.
I really
They
want to
what?
fucking address that.
Oh yeah, we should. It's a terrible argument. Like it's
It's so
they
fucking
like
stupid, dude. You like 40K because it
yeah,
is kind of fascist. That's why
right.
I like 40K.
Well, 40K is
I think
yeah,
big stories about fucking powerful ass jacked 8 foot tall space marines imposing their
yeah,
authority on people
yeah.
fucking rules.
Yeah, 40K isn't kind of fascist. It's massively fascist. And now we don't mean that in the sense that it's literally the platform of the Italian fascist party, but in the sense that the term has been thrown around for 60 years at least to mean anything that sort of glorifies strength and has a sort of sort of authoritarian tendencies, glorification of strength, militarism. It's very fucking fascist.
Yeah, all
Um,
in
it's
broader sense, all the shit that just like guys like from adolescence onward.
yes, yes. Fascism has been turned into a term for any sort of robust, non-modern right-wing
Any
worldview.
sort of
Right?
like
It's just
illiberal
yeah,
hypermasculinity.
yeah. Monarchy in this view, monarchy and empire are fascist too, right? It's like the empire literally is not a fascist state; it's an empire, but they are. They certainly use sort of totalitarian means of social mobilization, and they certainly have, you know, um, massive propaganda apparatus devoted to instilling ideology, blah blah blah, right? But mostly the part that everyone cares about is the guys with sick armor and cool swords. Uh, Starship Troopers is a little different because Heinlein does a bit of culture jamming, right? So he makes this. I believed, if correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this was the movie, but I'm pretty sure that there's something like sort of the thing in Starship Troopers is that there's a rigorously universal concept of the state,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's sort of a multiracial, multi every both sexes sort of army,
Yeah, it's
right?
a sort
It's
of
not a,
like
it's a
hyper
sort of
civnat fascist thing.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a supranational fascism, and it has women in the force and stuff like that. Honestly, these ideas are like that doesn't make it not fascist. That just makes it a sort of I mean that makes it not like it makes it different from any historically existing instance of the ideology. But it just yeah, I mean, God, do we want to get into a whole history? But
No, God, please
yeah.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
Anything but that.
But basically, it's it's totally an ideology you could have seen emerging in the 20th century.
Yeah, I think it's an effort to make a distinctly like American
yes
kind of interpretation of an American fascism. Yeah.
Yes, and so the and so the people, the sort of pseudo right guys who are defending this game online do this stupid bait and switch where they point to these sort of universalist features of the Starship Troopers, which are just preserved in Helldivers, and they say, "Oh, see, it's not fascist. It's just about being an American patriot."
Yes.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And honestly, the people who made the game are playing this stupid ass game too, because even though they know everyone's going to love the game because it's about being a super-powered space marine and stomping bugs and being super fascist, they cloak it all in parody, right?
Yeah,
it also has this idiocracy thing about it where everyone's like, "Oh yeah, patriotism, democracy, my freedom."
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the comments is saying Homelander. Yeah, it definitely has something to do with that guy for sure.
Yes.
So yeah, no, really, it's just people who are just they can't just say they like the thing.
Yeah, and here's how we can seize on the sort of like the pseudo right bait and switch, and here's how we can also jump it back to metal for Pagan of the North, since we've derailed our own show. I decide what we talk about. I can't fucking derail my own show. What the fuck are you fucking high? All right, so here's how we jump it back to metal though. Let's take a band like Revenge, which is where everyone is being such a fucking idiot about that band. Like I told you that experience I had like a few years back where I was at like a kind of a trendy grindcore show, people with pronoun pins and shit. Where there's like a chick who is like the girlfriend of a friend of mine, and she's standing around playing pool and like talking to a friend of hers, and she says, "Revenge, that band is like so sketch." And of course, I told you about that, and we're laughing our ass off because yeah, like no shit, buddy. Revenge is like clearly a fucking fascist band. But then, these like pseudo right-wing black metal guys will play the same game that like they're playing a different version of the RABM plausible deniability game.
Oh God, yes. Actually, that is a huge problem, and it's happened. It especially happens in like the boomer reaches of the BM scene.
Oh yeah, where they're like, well, there's clearly not a German international friendship symbol on this album, so it doesn't really count. It's like, dude, like. That it's clearly designed to be fascist music, and the bigger thing, the thing that ties us into Helldivers is like that's the reason you like it, because you think that a song called "Blood of My Blood" is cool with a bunch of blast beats and screaming over it. Like you are attracted to that aesthetic. For exactly the same reason that the RABM kids like get upset or at least like apprehensive about it. Like I am so tired of all of us having.
To be fair, the RABM people also like that about Revenge, which is why they attempt to
yes
sort of copy the entire aesthetic, and they ironically. Right, they are uncomfortable with art manifests to you an image of that which is cool.
Yes.
Right. It manifests an image of value. You look at it and you say, right, the art itself does this, right? You look at it and you say, that's fucking cool. And Revenge shows people an image of things that are cool that some of them find deeply uncomfortable, right? And Revenge, like all black metal, exaggerates and rubs your face in it, right? Big time. It's in the same way that Warhammer 40K does or Helldivers does, right? It's like all of the things that people find most offensive about this, we're going to focus on.
Well, yeah, but I just don't
And
understand why, like, all of us, for some reason, over the past
mhm,
few years, have fucking decided that the way you have conversations about this is by, like, dancing around the obvious aesthetic core of it. Like,
yeah,
it's so transparently obvious to anyone with half a brain, but there's this social game being played on all sides, where as long as, like, everybody denies the thing that's right in front of them,
yeah.
like we can have a different kind of conversation.
Well, it's
People are
sorry, keep going.
weirded out by revenge for the same reason that other people are attracted to revenge, which is like this flirtation with totalitarian fucking imagery and
Well,
aesthetics.
it's not flirting. It just I mean,
Well, okay, well,
yeah.
flirting in the sense that it is
Uh,
not
uh,
reproducing a specific one, you know.
yeah, well, that's the thing that throws people about art, right? I mean, it's and about black metal in general. There's a the people who sort of throw up their hands in shock uh um in the people who throw in their hands Pagan of the North, there are tanky RABM bands, but it still wouldn't be black metal, and we are getting into that now. Um the sort of the RABM people will be the first to say everything's political, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all art is political. And the boomer black metal person is going to throw up his hands and say, that's not true. This is all apolitical, right? Blah, blah, blah. It's just art, man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's plain stupid, right? When the person says everything is political, they don't mean everything is literally about a party platform or everything is propaganda. They mean art manifests an order of values, right? There's sort of it's not literal politics, but ethics and metaphysics. A vision of the world is encoded in the music, in the riffs themselves, and in the song structures, and it manifests that on a deep level. Nobody could ever make an NS band that sounds like Crass,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is not an NS Crass, right? Uh, it could not be done. So these people, they say everything is political, and what they don't realize is uh, there's the illusion that is common on what we're getting at is illusions that are common on both sides of culture war shit. One of the dearest illusions is that there's such a thing as normal black metal that like isn't political. uh Most of the bands that are accused of being NS are, of course, not, right? That's a pretty, like, it's become bigger over the last few years because of culture war drama, but that's always been a pretty small subset of the scene. However, all of them, insofar as they are making real black metal, are not left wing, right?
Yeah.
Very, very not left wing. All of them are very fascist in the way that Warhammer 40K is very fascist.
Yeah, this general like
Um,
small f idea of
yeah,
fascism,
this,
authoritarianism,
yeah, it,
etc. Yeah.
it's not the same as, right, but it's in the same cultural tradition. What the kids in Norway were right, the kids in Norway were obviously obsessed with that stuff. Euronymous was obsessed with Stalin, not because of Stalin's avowed ideology, but
Mm-hmm.
because of his
His
sort of
methodologies.
yeah, and his sort of both his manifest ideological preferences and just their fascination with atrocity, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
people doing actual horrible shit. But they were, they were manifesting their own thing that can't be just assimilated to one ideology from the 20th century, right? And and yeah, black metal. It was always obvious that that's what was going on with black metal. Everyone in the 90s knew it. Everyone in the early 2000s knew it. If you talked with people on the punk scene, they would specifically say, I don't really listen to that stuff. It's all pretty fascist, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
they'd say, yeah, that stuff's all pretty fascist, but they got some great riffs, man, right?
Well, yeah,
Like,
that's something that I did want to bring up. Like the problem with a lot of these debates is that a lot of the guys are one of the annoying things that keeps happening is that the guys on the left that are leveling these accusations are basically correct that there is something going on. They just don't really understand the actual contours of what it is. And like everyone on the right is like just denying that it's even a thing. It's like, no, they're successfully identifying that there is like a commonality here of like sort of like authoritarian illiberalism. Like they think that it's something much more officiated and political than it actually is. You know.
Well, they have a hard time imagining that, like, the same person who can describe minute differences between various branches of socialist thought, or, you know, has a hard time imagining that there is an actual radical right intellectual tradition that is not all assimilable to just the guy from Germany in the 30s and 40s, right? There is, of course, there is a long tradition of that, and black metal was a kind of almost unconscious eruption of that in Norway in the early 90s, right? They were teenagers grabbing everything they could to get their hands on to express an ethos that was like that. The neo-folk guys did it a lot more sort of deliberately. But black metal is right-wing. It's not right-wing in the way Ronald Reagan is. And much of it is not right-wing in the way that, you know, the 1930s and 40s guy in Germany was. But it's, you know, it is. And the thing that throws people for a loop often is its chaotic tendency, right? Black metal is not about, you know, policing people's sexual morality, right? Or, you're right, because it's about structure. It's about things that are much bigger than that. Nobody cares.
That is one that's killing me now. Is the I mean, you and I we've talked about this so many times and complained about like the propensity towards squareness in like modern like right-wing spaces. That shit sucks, dude. And you know where that's really emerging? All this awful fucking like pro-Confederate or like Revolutionary War Argus Lent worship shit. Shut the fuck up, you nerds. Oh my god, I can defeat every member of every one of those bands in hand-to-hand combat, without question. Is the dorkiest shit in the world. What are we doing?
Well, that's the problem, is that like people, you now get like black metal used to be sort of, the black metal right was its own thing, right? Many people in the scene would not even think of themselves as political, even though their manifest preferences are such, right? It was its own kind of thing, and it emerged in conversation with other art movements, and with certain books and cultural reference points, but it wasn't a political movement. And then what happened is that the online right really took off as a political movement. And now you have kids getting into black metal. You see people in comments like, ho, another fine, based and racist band, my friend. Can you recommend 20 more? And then, you know, people being like, it's...
I was at a show the other day, and I was just talking to a buddy of mine about me, and we were talking about one of those goofy fucking bands, and I was doing exactly the same thing. It's like, they seem really based. I bet they're all groypers or something, you know, just fucking...
So that sort of attitude is, look, sure, that is what it is politically. It's not black metal, that's for sure. It has little, if anything, to do with black metal. And if that attitude, insofar as that attitude has come into the BM scene, it's definitely making it worse. I saw someone in the comments the other day being like, I think this was on one of Meatman's posts. Meatman from IG, as in Death Metal Shit Posting, did you post that sick footage of Ride for Revenge where the dude is pissing on a gimp? Did you post that, or was one of your friends? Someone in the comment section was genuinely sort of confused and troubled by this and was like, "Gay band?" ? I was like, bro, this is beyond gay.
Oh,
this is so far beyond gay. This is, you know, this is, that guy legitimately might not be gay, and he's just doing it because it's fucking crazy. And he also, And he also might be gay, and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
because Ride for Revenge is about primordial instinct and power worship in whatever form it expresses itself, right? So that
Well,
it's,
oh,
you know,
Rotten Peace talks about, remember when the alt media loved Diocletian despite them always clearly doing sketchy stuff since their early days?
yes.
And then he says, same thing goes for anything Miko Asper related. You're completely correct. However, what do we also see in both of those cases? Right-wing guys pretending not to be right-wing guys saying, well, I don't see anything wrong with this, even though Miko Aspa is, like, clearly, like, probably an actual National Socialist. Like, like,
Um,
like, why are we fucking around here? Like, what is this, game of sophistry we're all playing where we all know exactly what's being said, but we think if we fucking dance around the verbiage enough, it's going to change the system. It's like you see all these guys posturing as, like, fucking, tough right-wing pagan warriors and shit. But what do they spend all their time doing on the internet? Dancing around being called what they are. Like, what it's so goofy, man.
it's the yeah, there's a lot of stupid. So yeah, black metal is not squeaky clean. Um uh yeah, black metal is not squeaky clean. It is a nobody, right? Nobody cares about Gall because Gall has done what he's done, right? The man is measured by the deed. Nobody else has recorded the Treldom records, right? Now, he did ruin Gorgoroth, but he's got the Treldom records. He's got the Gallskag records too, which are super gay.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah, those were always extremely gay.
those are
Yeah.
super gay. Uh, and they're also extremely metal and extremely pagan, also. That they just manifest in the spirit. The If you want to look at the root of the black metal aesthetic and the sort of to outsiders seemingly incoherent vortex of forces, look at the Stooges. The early photos of the Stooges. There's a polarity in the Stooges. The two figures in the Stooges are um, Iggy, who relative to his time, Iggy is extremely not gay, although he has done some gay shit. But he's like wearing he's just like a total perv, right? That's the whole character. He's Dionysiac abandoned, total breakdown of taboos, sort of shamanic frenzy induced by breaking taboo. And he's wearing eyeliner and he's like he's in like a leash, which for like 1969 or 71 was extremely weird, right? He's crawling around like a dog, doing like I want to be your dog. In one of the last shows, he was like wearing a women's sun hat until a biker punched him in the face and knocked him out. So Iggy doing this thing. And on the other hand, you have Ron Ashton, who introduces the band in German and is wearing historical military paraphernalia, especially his own personal logo, the Iron Cross, right?
Yeah.
Ron Ashton was, of course, not NS, right? But there was something about that shit that Ron thought was cool, and he translated that into the band. Same thing with Hanneman, right? And what the Stooges aesthetic is that raw power. They put a word to it, right? Black metal and all the most extreme underground music deals in raw power, right? So the way that Ride for Revenge does that is not necessarily going to sit well with the Family Values Brigade.
Landfish says rejecting authoritarianism or fascism as bad is pretty much the baseline framework of modern political discourse, which is why both sides' main angle of critique is to accuse the other of being NS.
Yes,
that's true. That's very true, and it's fucking hilarious, especially when it comes to, oh my god, I've got like stories from my local scene right now for this of like far right infighting that is the dumbest shit I have ever seen. So the Tampa scene has always had a sort of right wing bend to it, as well as like generally a contingent of like actual NS people. So now what's happened is that the avowed NS people, being very stupid white trash as they typically are are embroiled in fights with each other where they are attempting to like publicly reveal each other's NS status. so
What the fuck?
there's a situation going on where it's like Nazis accusing other Nazis of being Nazis and then being upset that other people are calling them Nazis. And these are people who are shocked that they're being called Nazis when they're on like Facebook Live videos with visible SS tattoos and shit. Like, I'm talking about the most unfathomably, like, fucking 80 IQ people you have ever seen. But so these are just like idiots fucking with each other, which is extremely funny. But I think it is fascinating that even within the milieu of people who get German friendship symbols tattooed on them, they still can't stand the idea of being called what they have tattooed on themselves willingly. Like, isn't this like? Doesn't Zizek do a bit about this kind of thing? I swear to God.
It's
Oh God.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So it's pretty wild. Terminus went 4 years without getting political, but we've done it.
Excuse me, black metal guy. It's all political.
Is that the end of the stream?
That's the end of the stream. Thanks for coming in, guys. It's been a lot of fun. We'll do this again soon. This is a lot of fun.
It's always like easier to do than I remember. This is honestly, guys, this is a really good replica of what the death metal guy and I talk to when we're not doing this show. Talk about. Like,
this is pretty much it.
This is pretty much just us shooting the shit on Discord.
Yeah, this is pretty much our standard mode. And like this is kind of like how we text each other during the day. Do you think that
our love language is complaining?
Do you think our listeners realize that we're literally like texting back and forth like every single day when we're not doing the show pretty much?
It's true. Yeah, there's always some stupid bullshit to complain about.
The longing bromance that never really ceases.
Yes. People on the show are always like, wow, you guys are so negative, and we're always like, we're being positive.
Oh, you guys should fucking hear when we're not recording.
Yeah, we try so hard to be positive on the show because we are always complaining.
The hostility.
Yes.
It's like there's a lot of, we'll put it this way, there's a lot of records which have received sort of tepid reviews on the show that like off mic are much more caustic.
Yeah, we both have we're both pretty negative people, and we've decided to devote a big chunk of our lives to mutually sort of amplifying that into a sort of a funnel of tempestuous hatred.
Funnel of tempestuous hatred. I think that's my new tape. It's a good name. So, all right.